This is dralvin.com, the business of wisdom, where world leaders and thinkers do come to chat. Very fortunate to have the international best-selling author of Sabotage, How Insecurity Destroys Everything. Want to hear from Trinity Jordan. How you doing, Trinity?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing real good. Tell me something about your ministry. Tell me about some of the things that has shaped you as a man of God.
I started off in ministry in Utah, actually, and starting churches in places where there wasn't a lot of churches for evangelical Christians. And from there, I ended up doing a lot of humanitarian aid mission trips to Cambodia and all across the world. And it just really kind of let me kind of dive into the poorest of the poor and see what the other side of the world was experiencing, and that's really shaped my perspective on life and what I need to pour into and what I need to be.
We noticed that you have a couple degrees here in biblical studies and legal studies, and currently right now you're getting your JD degree. So what is it about law that fascinates you, sir?
Actually, it was in Cambodia that I was we had rented buses, and we had rented the largest water park in all of Phnom Penh, and we took all these kids from these orphanages to this water park, and we were paying for all their food. We got them all new clothes, and I realized at that point, with all this money that I had access to, with everything I was doing, I could not change a single thing about these kids' lives other than that day. I could make their day happy, but because of the laws of Cambodia, there were certain restrictions that they could not be adopted until they were 18 and all this. I realized I couldn't do anything about their lives. So it was actually after that trip that I made the commitment that I would make sure that I was equipped and resourced so that barriers like that would never be in my way when I was out there trying to help people.
That's a good thing. That is one of the degrees that I would definitely pursue when I pursue another one, because I agree with you, sir. We can talk about inequity and justice, but unless we know law or are in that court of thought, it's kind of hard to protect people sometimes, sir.
Exactly.
Tell me about the day's book, Sabotage. Give me the basic overview of this particular book, and why was there a need to write it?
Well, the basic overview of this book is, actually it was a lawyer that comes to Jesus at one point and says, "Hey, what's the greatest commandment?" And Jesus says, "Well, what do you think?" And the lawyer says, "To love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself." And so if this is the basic tenet of what it means in life, I truly have believed from every time I've been in ministry and conversations and counseling that the thing that sabotages our relationships with others and God is the fact that we don't love ourselves. We are unhappy with who we are. We're unhappy with things that have happened to us or how others have treated us, or we're unhappy with how God has created us. And so how can we truly love others when we don't even know how to love us? And how can we truly love God when we're blaming Him for maybe the situation we're in, or how we physically look, or how God has created us in some instances?
Tell me how the sabotage begins.
Well, I think most psychologists will tell us that it happens at an early age. We develop this insecurity very young, when we're still in single digits. It's probably true. I don't have enough research on it like these psychologists do, but I take their word for it. And I can tell in my own life, and that's actually what I use in the book, Sabotage. I just talk about me. I figure if I can be transparent about my insecurities, hopefully others that are reading the book will be open and honest with their insecurities. And so for me, it happened at an early age. My parents were divorced when I don't even remember them together, and I became the ping pong ball in their lives as they developed new families and new children, and I just bounced from parent to parent. And so one of the insecurities that developed in my life was the idea of not feeling loved and accepted. And so out of that, I was able to craft, kind of all these thoughts and this conversation around insecurity in this book, just using my own story. And here's the things that I've done in my life to all the defense mechanisms I've used. And so I really get into this idea that first step maybe in all of this, if there is steps, it's to realize we're all insecure. We all have defense mechanisms. We all do things to cover up the lack of security that somehow, some way is in our lives. And if we're not aware of it, then what we do is we're going to lead a sabotage life where we sabotage relationships.
Is that why you use the first part of the book to talk about subversion?
Yes, exactly. In fact, the case story, kind of another little funny little fact is when I first started attending church, I didn't grow up in church, but when I first started attending church, I would hear the stories of these Bible characters, and to me, they were just superhuman. There's no way that these people were real people, because it just seemed like unhuman, and nobody I knew was like them. And if you actually take time and slowly read, our sacred scriptures here, you realize these people are just like you and I, and they are insecure, and they act out in their insecurities, and they react to their insecurities. And so in Subversion, the first section on subversion, I actually used Jacob and the story of Jacob, and start showing how these our heroes, our Bible characters, they're insecure, and they've subverted the life that maybe God had intended for them by acting out in their insecurity.
In part number 2, and I don't think you could use a better illustration than Coach K, the legendary Duke basketball coach, especially when it deals with the subject of separation, because any good ball player, in order for him to make that jump shot, he has to separate himself from someone else. And here's a powerful quote that you have: "If you're always striving to achieve a success that's defined by someone else, I think you always will be frustrated defying your own success." Talk about the power of separation.
Well, I get into that with talking about how one of the things we normally do within our insecurity is we start looking at everybody around us and comparing ourselves. I think here in American culture, we have the idea of keeping up with the Joneses. We look and see what the person next to us, did they get the same treatment that we did? Did they get the same opportunity? Did we get the same opportunities that they did? Do I have what they have? Do I look like they look? Do I, walk like they walk? And so this idea of separating ourselves from them is not playing that game of comparison. Don't start comparing yourself to somebody else, because there's always somebody that's done better than you, and there's always somebody that's done worse. And you start playing that game of comparison, you're always going to lose. And then people around you become maybe pawns in a game. This isn't a game. This is life, and you're not competing against people around you. And so success becomes not playing that game of what is fair, but playing the game of who are you, what do you have in your hands, what has God blessed you with, what is life for you right now, and live that life, live what you've got.
We're talking about the subject of sabotage, how insecurity destroys everything. We listen to the best-selling author Trinity Jordan. Let's look at the last chapter here, or the last part. You have a quote by Oswald Chambers: "Life with the Life Giver. Not often, but every once in a while, God brings us to a major turning point, a great crossroads in our life. From that point, we either go toward a more slow, lazy, useless Christian life, or we become more and more on fire, giving our utmost for His highest, our best for His glory." Tell me about Life with the Life Giver.
Well, I think it all boils down to this idea that once you realize your insecurities, once you realize that if you don't love you, you're going to sabotage your relationships with others and God, you start to realize that the freedom that we've been searching for, and freedom being the idea of you're searching for that security, the only person that can give it to you is the life giver. It's God. And that's, accepting what He's given you in life, accepting that He's the only person that you need to worry about. We talk about an audience of one. That's the audience that you're living for, and you're you're trying to make happy in life. If you could say you're trying to make God happy because He's completely happy with you, but it's that's where your worry and your connection is God. He is the one that's going to give you security, utmost security in life. Not this world, not the next success, not the next paycheck, not the next 4,000 square foot house, not the next Rolls Royce. None of that stuff's going to actually cure security or cure that lack of feeling of whatever it is. It just becomes defense mechanisms. But it's God that cures all of this.
We're talking about sabotage, how insecurity destroys everything. This particular chat will be featured at dralvin.com on the website, dralvin.com on Facebook. Also, our YouTube channel, dralvin.com. We discover wisdom, one brilliant mind. And also the conversation will continue on Twitter at Dr. Alvin Jones. Give me a final thought, Trinity, and tell us how to get a copy of this book.
Probably the fastest and easiest way is to get one on Amazon.com, but wherever books are sold, you can pick up Sabotage. Final thought is that a good book is an 8-hour conversation with an author. And I hope that that's what this has become and will become for people, is that there's no steps to this. There's not I don't know if there's a ladder rung that anybody can walk up in curing this, but we could sit down and have this conversation about what is insecurity, what is it in your life, what is it in my life, and what is it to struggle with insecurity, and hopefully somewhere along this struggle we'll come out ahead.
Well, thank you so very much for sharing this important book, and we appreciate you doing so, and you continue to have a remarkable and amazing day, okay?
You too, sir. Thank you.